CT4-V Blackwing, but not just any CT4-V Blackwing. This is going to be the first Tapout tuned Blue Bow package car. We're going to take you along through the parts installation and dyno tuning so you can see how this car can start making some serious power. So these are all the parts involved with the Blue Bow package for the CT4-V Blackwing. We've got green air filters, Kohler spark plugs, Higgs throttle body, our PTC Assassin, the Delta control module, and this is part of what makes the tuning possible. And then we have our resonated downpipes along with hardware kit. And the owners of this car let us know it needed an oil change while it was here too, so we're going to do that as well. First thing we're going to do is install the Higgs ported throttle body. Once that's done, we'll move on to spark plugs, air filters, and downpipes. We're basically going to do this in a way that's logical. So when you do the throttle body, then it gives you access to the spark plugs. So we want to work efficiently here so we can get this back to the customer as soon as possible. Now it's time to install spark plugs. Today's flavor, Brisk RR12S, which Jorge will be gapping to the correct gap, and we'll be using plenty of dielectric grease in the cold boot ends when he installs them, prevent misfires and carbon tracing. That's super important on these cars, and having these Kohler plugs are what's going to allow us to turn up the boost and to do so without having any misfire issues when the car is at wide open throttle. Now we're going to install air filters. It's pretty self-explanatory. just heard was the stock downpipes. So we'll get those out, swap in the new downpipes, and we'll see what kind of sound difference we get. Now we're going to install the Delta Control Module, or DCM, which you can see is this bunch of wires here and the module itself. This isn't exactly just a plug-and-play system. This has been a year of research development, dyno tuning, track days, to get to a point where it's a reliable and verified tuning solution for the E99 platform, which is yet to be cracked and may never be. So this is the best solution we have that allows tuning to be done through the Blackwing, and we're excited to show you how it turns out. We just did our first baseline pull, 413 at the wheels SAE correction. We expect the next pull to be within 1% of that. We've been dyno tuning this CT4-V Blackwing all day. We're about to be on pull number 13. As you saw in the last clip, the car baselined at about 413 wheel horsepower. That's SAE correction, so we're already up about 100 wheel horsepower. So we're going to see how pull number 13 goes and what kind of power it's making now. After pull 13, we're up to 516 horsepower SAE correction, and pull number 12, we're at 515, so both within 1% of each other. And things are looking really nice for this Blackwing.
So we spent the last 1 year and 1 week figuring out how to tune the CT4-V Blackwings, and yesterday and today we actually did our first Blue Belt Performance Package. This car came in from Louisiana, a little over 1,000-mile drive, and from the factory they're rated at 472 crank horsepower. If we assume about 12% drivetrain loss for the A10 transmissions, that works out to 415 at the crank, or at the wheels. And our first two dyno pulls were done completely stock, and they were 412 and 413, within 2 or 3 horsepower of what we expected, right on the money. Shows the repeatability of the dyno and shows that the car's healthy and making exactly what it should be making. Taking a look at the factory power band, actually let's take a look at the factory boost curve. And this will be slightly different depending what gear you're in and what the temperature and the atmospheric conditions are, etc. But on the dyno in the 1-to-1 gear, which is 7, the car peaked about 12 or 13 pounds of boost, and then it would close the throttle a little bit and boost would drop to 9 or 10, and then the throttle would open back up again and boost would come up to 12 or 13. And by red line, boost was dropping down below 10 pounds. It was about 9.5. Looking at the fueling from the factory at full throttle, fueling came in about high 12s, 12.7 to 1, 12.8 to 1, which is where these cars run really nice. And by 4,000 RPMs, it was about 12.0. By 5,000, it was about 11.8. And by 6,000, it's about 11.5 to 1. Just kept getting richer and richer, basically. And again, this is totally factory, nothing changed. This is what we would expect for any Blackwing that we put on the dyno. M6 cars will show a little bit different numbers on the dyno, but the boost curve will be similar and the fuel curve will be similar. When we were finished with the car, it picked up just over 100 horsepower at the wheels, which is about I think it picked up 103 at the wheels, which works out to about 115 at the crank, taking the 472 crank horsepower that it's rated at up to, what would that be, 485 or 585. Very impressive. Even more impressive is what happened in the power band. Let's look at fueling and boost first. Fueling is now basically between 12 and 13 to 1 for the whole entire pull. Nicer, healthier number than where we started. Boost is higher than where it was from the factory, and also carries a lot longer, and we don't see anywhere near as big of dips when the throttle is closing, because now we've got the throttle staying open at full throttle. We talked about power. Let's actually overlay the original pull, baseline pull, with the final number so you can get a feel for how big it is. In fact, let me remove torque from here so it's easier to see the horsepower numbers. Let's see, blue on this chart, the blue line is the OEM power, and then the red line is where we left the car with our Blue Belt package installed and all the tuning done. Basically, you can see up to about 3,700 RPMs, power is virtually the same, and that's because boost is the same and fueling is the same. Above there, we start turning up the boost and adjusting the fueling. By 4,000 RPMs, we're up about 50 horsepower. By 5,000 RPMs, we're about 70 horsepower. That's about 80 horsepower. By 5,500, we're about 90 horsepower. By 6,000, we're about 115 horsepower difference. So basically, on the A10 cars, they have 10 speeds. Obviously, they shift a lot. The transmission always keeps the car in a certain power band. And if you keep it full throttle through a full quarter mile or any highway run, you'll see it's always between 4,800 and 6,500. So if you look at that range from 4,800 to 6,500, this car left with between 85 and 115 more horsepower at the wheels across that entire power band, and that's what makes it feel like a completely different car.
To wrap things up here, our Tapout tune has turned this CT4-V Blackwing in what we think it should have always been from the factory. It's one of the best cars we've ever ridden in, but with this added power, it drives like you'd expect it to for the level of car it is, and GM really knocked it out of the park. We're proud to have been able to work alongside this platform to make the CT4-V Blackwing the sports sedan it was always meant to be.